In recent weeks, we've been learning how to use Serif Draw Plus. Now we're going to actually use it to make our first proper object, which we will laser cut. Okay, so it's going to be a headphone winder and a phone stand. So we will start this by creating a rectangle by selecting the quick rectangle tool over on this side of the page. And we will draw a rectangle that is exactly 70 millimeters in height by 40 millimeters in width. Now that does look small on the page, but we need to just zoom in because this is exactly the size of material that we have to use. Okay, next step is to use the radius of corners tool up here, and that gives us curved edges to our object. Now, I wouldn't take it much past 20, maybe 25 at a push, but not any more than that. Okay, the next thing we want to do then, always using the pointer tool, is we want to create two smaller rectangles. Okay, now we'll just start off by creating one, and what's really important here is the size of these rectangles. Now, if I go to the Transform tab, the width of it needs to be 15 millimeters. That's an absolute figure that cannot be changed. The height of it needs to be the thickness of your phone. Okay, so you will need to measure your phone, and if your phone is, for example, 9 millimeters thick, then you will set this size to be 9 millimeters. If your phone has a case on it and the case measures exactly 11 millimeters thick, then you will need to set this size to be 11. Whatever the exact size of your phone is, you must set this to be exactly the same. If it's too big, your phone won't fit in it properly and it will slip off. If it's too small, then your phone won't fit in it at all and it won't work. Okay. My phone is 9 millimeters thick, so I'm going to set this size to be 9. Okay, now what I want to do, take the black pointer tool and I want to move it just ever so slightly out beyond the edge, like that. And then I want to zoom in on the object so that I can see it nice and clearly. So I need to make sure it's sticking out over the edge ever so slightly. But as we can see here, it's got really sharp corners on it, and sharp corners are not good when it comes to designs like this because they will help it break much more easily. Okay, so we want to give small curves to these corners by using the radius of corners tool again. In industry, these curves are called fillets. Now, what's really important is that our object is sticking out beyond the edge enough so that the whole curved edge sticks out. So in other words, that is not good enough. It must be out beyond the edge like that. Okay, I'm going to zoom out now because I quite like that design, that works for me. And I want to make an exact copy of it by going to Edit Copy and then Edit Paste. It's pasted another version of this rectangle directly on top of itself, so I'm going to use my cursor key on my keyboard to just nudge it all the way along so that it looks the same on the other side. As you can see now, I've got these two rectangles that are in the exact same position on the left and on the right. I'm going to zoom right out so that I can see my whole object. And now what I want to do is I want to cut out this rectangle and this rectangle from this big rectangle. So what I will do is I'll press and hold my mouse and drag it down to here. This is called rubber banding. So when I let go, it has selected all objects, that is the big rectangle and the two small rectangles. At this point, I'm going to click on Arrange, then Join, then Subtract. And as you can see, it's removed these two rectangles from here, and it's left me this shape. This is exactly the shape that I want. Now in this area down here, I'm going to eventually put my name. In this area up here, I'm going to put two elliptical holes for my earbuds and also a hole for my keychain hoop. Okay, so over on the left hand side we need to select the quick ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw one ellipse, and the size of that ellipse needs to be a total height of 18 millimeters and a total width of 14 millimeters, like so. It's given me one ellipse. Let's zoom in on that so that we can see it. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to position it so that it's not too close to the edge, because that would be a poorly designed model, because the model would break very easily. So what I actually want to do is place it roughly about there, and instead of making a whole new one, I'm going to go to the Edit Copy, Edit Paste command, and it's pasted another copy of that ellipse in position right on top of itself, and all I need to do is move it to where I want it to be. Okay, so somewhere about there. Now, finally, I need to put the hole for my keychain here. So I'm going to select the quick ellipse tool again, and I'm going to draw a circle. Now, when you select the quick ellipse tool, it will give you any option you like. So you can have a long, slim ellipse, or you can have a tall, narrow ellipse. In order to get the perfect circle, if you press and hold the Shift key as you create the ellipse, it will give you a perfect circle. Now, you want your circle to be somewhere in around 4 millimeters. That's 4.06 millimeters. That will do. If it's bigger than 4 millimeters, that's not going to be very good because it could weaken your design. If it's smaller than 4 millimeters, that's also not going to be very good because your key hook won't fit through it. Okay, now, what again is really important is this is going to be a hole inside a piece of plastic. If we put it too close to the edge, you will notice that that's going to make it really weak because a key hook will be through that. So this area in here would break much too easily. Likewise, if we put it too far down here, our key hook is going to need to be a very big key hook in order to fit into the hole. So, in other words, we want to make it so that it's strong enough that there's enough material for it not to break, but also not too far from the edge. Something like this will suffice. If you're really not sure, one little trick that you can do here is copy that existing circle and paste it on top of itself, and then move the second one up to the edge like that, so that you've created almost this figure of 8 like that. And that tells you that the circle that you want to keep is exactly 4 millimeters from this edge, which is good. That's what we want. That's what we want. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one now and just remove it again. Okay, finally, in this area here, you want to put your name. So if we click on the artistic text tool, and don't click inside the space for the moment, click outside the space and just type your name. So for example, Joshua. And then you can highlight all your text. You can increase the font size to make it big enough to fit into the space. You can then change that font or typeface to one of your own choosing. There's lots and lots and lots of different typefaces here to use. Then you can move it into position and adjust the size of it appropriately. Your name will be engraved onto the plastic. The rest of the shape will be cut out. As you will note from previous exercises, one way to get it exactly in the middle is to align it with the rest of the object. So at the moment we've got our name. Let's just deliberately move it off center for a moment, and let's then press and hold the Shift key and select our object so that it's selected the name and the object. We can then use the Align tool here, and we can use the Center Horizontally tool. 3, 2, 1, and that brings our name right into the middle. Okay, and then we can nudge it up or nudge it down depending on what height we want it to be at. Okay, once you have created your keyring the way you want it, you need to then go to the File Save As menu and save it into your Dropbox folder.
Here's an example of the laser cutter in our classroom cutting out one pupil's phone stand and keyring. As you can see, it's cutting through sheet acrylic that's 5mm thick, and the whole process takes approximately 45 seconds. And here is an example of the finished headphone stand and keyring. As you can see, the earbuds are wound around the notches, and the notches themselves act as a holder for the phone so that the viewer can use the phone hands-free to watch YouTube, Netflix, iPlayer, TikTok, etc.